It was a Tuesday morning in late October, the kind where the crisp autumn air of Boston, Massachusetts, usually invigorated me. The city, with its historic brick buildings and vibrant intellectual hum, had always felt like home. But that day, a cold dread had settled deep in my bones, far heavier than any New England chill. My name is David Miller, and for 7 blissful years, I believed I was married to the most wonderful woman in the world, Sarah Jenkins. We lived in a charming brownstone in the Beacon Hill neighborhood, its gas lamps casting a warm glow on cobblestone streets, our lives seemingly perfect, a testament to hard work and shared dreams. Sarah, with her captivating smile and sharp wit, was a vision of success. She was a financial advisor at a reputable firm on State Street, her office overlooking the bustling financial district. Or so I thought. She had an uncanny ability to make everyone feel at ease, a talent I admired, believing it was the cornerstone of her professional success. Clients adored her, colleagues respected her, and I, her husband, was utterly smitten. Our evenings were filled with lively discussions about current events, art, and our future plans, a small cottage on Cape Cod, perhaps, or a sabbatical to travel through Europe. She was my confidant, my partner, my everything. Our life together was a tapestry woven with threads of shared laughter, quiet evenings, and ambitious plans. We met at a charity gala in New York City, a chance encounter that felt like destiny. She was radiant in a sapphire gown, her eyes sparkling with an intelligence that immediately drew me in. I, a budding architect then, was captivated. Our courtship was a whirlwind of romantic dinners in Greenwich Village, weekend trips to the Hamptons, and long, philosophical conversations that stretched into the early hours. She spoke of a challenging childhood in upstate New York, overcoming adversity to build a successful career, a narrative that only deepened my admiration and love. She was, in my eyes, the embodiment of the American dream, a self-made woman of grace and intellect. The first crack in my perfect world appeared subtly, a tiny fissure I initially dismissed as a minor imperfection. A letter arrived from the IRS, addressed to Sarah, mentioning discrepancies in a client's tax filings. It was a thick envelope, official and foreboding. Sarah, perched on our antique chaise lounge, casually tore it open, scanned its contents, and then, with a dismissive wave of her hand, declared it a mere clerical error. "Oh, David, you know how these things are," she had said, her voice light and reassuring. "Just some bureaucratic mix-up. Happens all the time in finance." I believed her, of course. Why wouldn't I? Sarah was meticulous, brilliant, and utterly trustworthy. I watched her shred the letter, the sharp whir of the machine momentarily silencing my nascent unease. Weeks later, another incident, equally subtle, pricked at my subconscious. We were at a dinner party in New York City, hosted by one of Sarah's former colleagues, Richard Sterling, a jovial man who had recently retired to Greenwich, Connecticut. Over a glass of Cabernet, Richard mentioned a particularly lucrative investment Sarah had recommended years ago, one that had apparently yielded him a substantial return. He spoke of it with such gratitude, almost reverence. Yet, when I later casually brought it up to Sarah, she seemed to gloss over it, changing the subject with a practiced ease that, in hindsight, was almost too smooth. I attributed it to her modesty, her aversion to boasting about her successes. After all, she was always so humble, despite her achievements. The true unraveling began with a phone call, a jarring intrusion into the quiet sanctity of our Beacon Hill brownstone. It was a crisp Saturday morning, and I was enjoying a rare moment of peace, sipping coffee and reading the Boston Globe in our sun-drenched living room. The caller ID flashed an unfamiliar number from Nantucket. I answered, expecting a wrong number, but instead, a voice, frail and trembling, introduced himself as Mr. Henderson. My heart pounded in my chest. Mr. Henderson. The name was instantly recognizable. He was an elderly gentleman, a retired history professor, whom Sarah had been advising for years. She had always spoken so fondly of him, almost like a grandfather, praising his sharp mind and gentle spirit. "Mr. Miller," he began, his voice raspy with what sounded like suppressed tears. I don't know who else to call. It's about Sarah. And my money." The words hung in the air, heavy and ominous. He went on to explain, haltingly, how nearly $500,000 had vanished from his retirement account. a sum he had entrusted entirely to Sarah, his financial confidant. He had received a cryptic statement, then nothing. His calls to Sarah had gone unanswered for days. He was desperate, confused, and utterly heartbroken. My mind reeled. $500,000? Vanished? It couldn't be. Not Sarah. Not my Sarah, I tried to reassure him, my own voice betraying a tremor I couldn't control. I promised to look into it, to speak with Sarah immediately. But even as the words left my mouth, a cold, creeping suspicion began to take root. The IRS letter, Richard Sterling's odd comment, Sarah's evasiveness, they all coalesced into a chilling pattern. I hung up the phone, the receiver feeling impossibly heavy in my hand, and stared out at the familiar Acorn Street, its picturesque charm suddenly feeling like a cruel mockery of my inner turmoil. When Sarah returned home that evening, her usual effervescent mood seemed to deflate the moment she saw my face. I confronted her, my voice tight with a mixture of fear and anger. "Sarah, I just spoke to Mr. Henderson. He says $500,000 is missing from his account. What's going on?" Her usual composure, that impenetrable shield of confidence, finally faltered. Her eyes, usually so bright and direct, darted away, unable to meet mine. A flicker of something I couldn't quite identify, panic? Guilt? Crossed her features before being quickly masked. She stammered, offering vague explanations about market fluctuations, aggressive investment strategies, and a temporary liquidity issue. "It's just a misunderstanding, David. The market's been volatile. I'm working on it. It'll all be sorted out." But the words felt hollow, devoid of her usual confident conviction. Her explanations were too convoluted, too rehearsed. The woman who could effortlessly explain complex financial instruments to me now struggled to articulate a coherent defense. The next few days were a blur of frantic calls and hushed conversations. I really watched her, for the first time in years, and saw a stranger, driven by a desperate, almost pathological need to prove my wife's innocence. I started digging. Secretly at first, sifting through her home office, her financial statements, anything I could find. The more I looked, the more the pieces of a terrifying puzzle began to fall into place. What I uncovered was a meticulously woven web of deceit that stretched back years, far predating our marriage. Sarah Jenkins wasn't just a financial advisor. She was a master manipulator, a con artist who had systematically defrauded clients, friends, and even family. The firm on State Street was real, but her role there was a facade, a cover for her elaborate schemes. She had created fake accounts, forged documents, and siphoned off millions, funneling the money into offshore accounts and a lavish lifestyle that we both enjoyed, unknowingly funded by her victims. I found evidence of her past aliases, a trail of ruined lives stretching from New York City to Miami. There was a Sarah Jenkins who had worked at a boutique investment firm in Manhattan under a different name, leaving a trail of disgruntled clients and vanished funds. Another Sarah Jenkins, or perhaps a Samantha Jones, had operated a seemingly legitimate real estate venture in South Beach, only to disappear with investors' money. The charming stories she told about her humble beginnings in upstate New York were fabrications. Her parents, whom I had met only once at our wedding, were actors she had hired for the occasion, paid handsomely to play the part of loving, if somewhat reserved, parents. Every detail of our life, every shared memory, felt tainted by her deception. The romantic dinners in Greenwich Village, the weekend trips to the Hamptons, the quiet evenings in our brownstone. All of it was built on a foundation of lies. The realization hit me like a physical blow, a punch to the gut that left me breathless. The woman I loved, the woman I had built a life with, was a stranger. The pain was excruciating, a betrayal so profound it threatened to shatter my very being. It wasn't just the financial ruin, the public humiliation that I knew was coming. It was the utter demolition of my reality. The person I had trusted implicitly, the one I had vowed to spend my life with, was a phantom, a carefully constructed illusion. The grief was overwhelming, a raw, visceral ache that settled deep in my soul. I felt foolish, naive, and utterly alone. I contacted the authorities, my hands shaking as I dialed the number. Sarah's trial was a spectacle. Her lawyers tried to paint her as a victim of circumstance, a brilliant but misguided individual who had simply made some bad choices. But the evidence was overwhelming. Mr. Henderson, his spirit visibly broken, testified, his voice cracking as he recounted the loss of his life savings. Other victims, from all walks of life, shared their stories of betrayal and financial devastation. Sarah, for her part, remained largely impassive, her eyes occasionally flicking towards me, a strange mixture of defiance and something I couldn't quite decipher. Was it regret? Or just annoyance at being caught? She was eventually convicted on multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, and identity theft. The judge, in his sentencing, spoke of the egregious nature of her crimes, the calculated cruelty with which she had preyed on the vulnerable. She received a lengthy prison sentence, a fate I had once thought unimaginable for the woman I loved. But by then, the love had curdled into a bitter cocktail of anger, sorrow, and profound disillusionment that I moved out of Boston, seeking anonymity and a fresh start. The city, once a symbol of our shared dreams, had become a monument to my shattered reality. I found a small, secluded town in Vermont, nestled amidst the rolling green mountains, far from the echoes of Sarah's lies and the prying eyes of the public. The quiet solitude of Stowe became my refuge. I sold what little remained of my possessions, severed ties with most of my old life, and began the arduous process of rebuilding. Therapy became a lifeline. I spent countless hours dissecting the past, trying to understand how I could have been so blind, so completely deceived. The therapist, a kind and patient woman named Dr. Evans, helped me navigate the labyrinth of my grief, anger, and shame. She reminded me that I was a victim too, that Sarah's deception was a testament to her skill as a con artist, not to my foolishness. It was a slow, painful process, learning to trust again, not just others, but myself. Even now, years later, the memory of that Tuesday morning still haunts me. It was the day my world crumbled, the day I discovered my wife was a con artist. The scars remain, deep and indelible, a constant reminder of the profound betrayal. But they are also a testament to my resilience, to the strength I found within myself to pick up the pieces and move forward. I've learned to be more vigilant, more discerning, to look beyond the surface. The experience has left me with a profound understanding of the deceptive nature of appearances and the fragility of trust. I am forever changed, but I am also stronger, wiser, and, finally, at peace. The quiet beauty of Vermont has been a balm to my wounded soul, and though the past will always be a part of me, I am slowly, painstakingly, building a new future, one founded on truth and genuine connection. The initial shock of Sarah's arrest was quickly replaced by a suffocating wave of public scrutiny. Our brownstone, once a sanctuary, became a focal point for news vans and eager reporters. My face, once anonymous, was plastered across local news channels and online forums, often accompanied by headlines that questioned my intelligence, my judgment, or even my complicity. How could he not know? Was he in on it? These were the whispers that followed me, the accusations that burned hotter than any spotlight. I became a pariah, a figure of pity and ridicule. Friends, or those I thought were friends, distanced themselves. Invitations stopped coming. The polite nods in the grocery store turned into averted gazes. The social fabric of my life, meticulously woven over years, unraveled with terrifying speed. Every aspect of our shared life was dissected, analyzed, and twisted into something sinister. The lavish vacations to Paris and Rome, the expensive art we collected, the charity galas we attended, all were recontextualized as evidence of Sarah's extravagant fraud. Even my architectural projects, which I had poured my heart and soul into, felt tainted by association. Clients, understandably, grew wary. Contracts were quietly terminated. My professional reputation, built on integrity and hard work, was crumbling under the weight of Sarah's deception. The legal proceedings were a grueling marathon. Sarah, ever the performer, maintained a facade of bewildered innocence for as long as she could. Her defense team, well funded by her hidden assets, attempted to discredit the victims, to paint them as greedy or careless. They tried to portray Sarah as a brilliant but misunderstood financial innovator, a victim of an overly complex system. But the sheer volume of evidence, meticulously compiled by the FBI and the Boston Police Department, was insurmountable. The testimonies of her victims, each story a heartbreaking echo of Mr. Henderson's, painted a damning picture of calculated cruelty. I remember sitting in the courtroom, day after day, listening to the unraveling of a life I thought I knew. Each new revelation was a fresh wound, a deeper cut into the illusion I had cherished. There was Eleanor Vance, a retired schoolteacher from Providence, Rhode Island, who had lost her entire life savings, money intended for her grandchildren's education. There was Michael Chun, a young entrepreneur from San Francisco, whose promising startup was crippled when Sarah vanished with his seed capital. Their faces, etched with pain and betrayal, mirrored my own. It was a stark reminder that I was not alone in my suffering, that Sarah's reach extended far beyond our brownstone in Beacon Hill. Sarah, during these proceedings, would occasionally glance at me from the defense table. Her eyes, devoid of their former warmth, held a chilling blankness. Was it defiance? Contempt? Or perhaps a flicker of the woman I once loved, buried deep beneath layers of deceit? I searched for an answer, a sign of remorse, but found none. It was as if the person I had married had never truly existed, replaced by a meticulously crafted automaton designed for one purpose: to deceive. When the verdict finally came down, guilty on all counts, a collective sigh of relief swept through the courtroom. Justice, it seemed, had been served. But for me, there was no sense of triumph, only a profound emptiness. The woman I had loved was gone, replaced by a convicted felon. The future we had planned, the dreams we had shared, were shattered beyond repair. Her lengthy prison sentence, handed down by a stern judge who spoke of the need to protect society from such predators, felt both deserved and utterly devastating. Leaving Boston was not just a physical relocation. It was an act of emotional self-preservation. The city, with its every street corner and familiar landmark, was a constant reminder of Sarah, of our life, and of the colossal lie it had all been. I needed to escape the whispers, the judgmental stares, the suffocating weight of public opinion. I craved anonymity, a place where I could simply be David Miller, an architect, not the man whose wife was a con artist. Stowe, Vermont, with its serene landscapes and tight-knit community, offered that refuge. I bought a small, rustic cabin nestled deep in the woods, far from the hustle and bustle of city life. The silence was deafening at first, a stark contrast to the constant hum of Boston. But slowly, gradually, it became a comfort, a space for introspection and healing. I spent my days hiking the winding trails of the Green Mountains, the physical exertion a welcome distraction from the turmoil in my mind. I rediscovered my passion for sketching, finding solace in the precise lines and intricate details of architectural drawings. Therapy became an essential part of my recovery. Dr. Evans, with her gentle guidance, helped me untangle the complex web of emotions that had consumed me. We explored the psychological manipulations Sarah had employed, the subtle ways she had eroded my boundaries and exploited my trust. It was a painful process, confronting my own naivete, my desperate desire to believe in the woman I loved. But through it, I began to understand that her deception was not a reflection of my worth, but a testament to her pathology. I was a victim, yes, but I was also a survivor. Rebuilding trust, both in myself and in others, was the hardest part. Every new acquaintance was met with a cautious skepticism, every kind gesture scrutinized for hidden motives. It was a lonely existence for a while, guarded and isolated. But slowly, through Dr. Evans's encouragement and my own burgeoning desire for connection, I began to tentatively reach out. I joined a local hiking club, volunteered at the community center, and even started taking on small architectural commissions again, finding joy in the creative process. Years have passed since that fateful Tuesday morning. The raw wound has healed, leaving behind a deep, indelible scar. The memory of Sarah, of the life we shared, still surfaces occasionally, a phantom limb ache that reminds me of what was lost. But it no longer consumes me. I've learned to live with the scars, to see them not as symbols of my foolishness, but as markers of my resilience. I am stronger now, wiser, and more discerning. The experience has left me with a profound understanding of the deceptive nature of appearances and the fragility of trust. I am forever changed, but I am also, finally, at peace. The quiet beauty of Vermont has been a balm to my wounded soul, and though the past will always be a part of me, I am slowly, painstakingly, building a new future, one founded on truth, genuine connection, and an unwavering commitment to living authentically.